My true story from Washington. I ate alone on my 77th birthday, while my son and DIL dined at a 5-star resort with my pension fund. They thought I'd never know, but I kept the receipts. I stood outside the bedroom door, pretending to look for a misplaced photograph, when I heard their voices glow, with the kind of cruelty only youth and privilege can carry. My heart didn't flutter, it froze. Their words landed like tiny, precise shrapnel. It's her 77th. Honestly, she should be grateful we didn't put her in a home. A laugh, sharp and brittle. She'll forget by next week. Let her eat toast and pretend it's a celebration. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I could feel their smugness seep through the door. That pension isn't doing her any good. At least we know how to enjoy it. Their laughter followed, a slow cascade of entitlement. I stepped back, closing my eyes, the baker's dozen cake in my arms, wobbling against the wall. I did not cry. Not then. Tears would have been weak. I set the cake gently on the kitchen counter, a tiny lemon buttermilk cake, bought from the bakery I'd frequented for 30 years. I lit the single candle. Its flame flickered, mocking me with its fragility. My 77th birthday. Alone. No one to sing, no one to hold my hand. The house around me was quiet, except for the distant murmur of their voices, slipping through the walls like cold air. I removed the birthday card I'd bought last week. A simple card, gold-trimmed, with a handwritten note, "Happy 77th, Mom. Thank you for everything." Those words felt hollow now. I poured myself a cup of tea, Earl Grey, the one I've kept for special days. My hands shook. I didn't care. I needed a moment to steady the whirlwind inside my chest. I smelled the lemon zest crust of the cake, the smooth warmth of the tea, and I closed my eyes. I did not cry. I did not wail. I just let the silence wrap around me. Then I opened my laptop. The chime of new mail echoed through the kitchen. I clicked the bank app. $300. Reddish-pink notification bubble. I tapped through. Credit card. Transact Secure approved. $300, 0 cents. The Reserve at Lakeview Resort. My heart thudded. Not from shock, not from confusion, but from something older and firmer. Recognition. My card. My account. They were having a celebration. A 5-star dinner. They were raising a toast. With my money. While I was eating toast, I clicked recent transactions. There it was. $300, 0 cents. The date, the time, my name listed as the cardholder. I scrolled further down. $28, 50 cents for appetizers. $75, 0 cents for wine. $60, 0 cents for entree. $136, 50 cents for spa add-ons. All charged tonight. All from my savings. The flickering candle caught the text in the transaction box. That tiny flame looked like the candle on my cake. Stubborn, defiant. I held the teacup with trembling fingers as I stared at the screen. The quiet truth settled in. They thought I'd never know. But I did. I took a deep breath, the calm that follows a storm gathering in my chest. I shut the laptop. I didn't mourn. I didn't scream. Not yet. I sat back in the chair. I lifted the cake plate, the teacup, the card, all symbols of the love I'd poured into a family that had used my generosity as currency. I breathed in the candle scent and exhaled the ache that had lived inside me for longer than this night. I would remember this moment. I would name it. And I would decide what kind of woman I wanted to be tomorrow. Because tonight, I had the receipts, and we both knew what comes next when the truth is in your hands. I remember the early years like they happened yesterday, even though they were half a lifetime ago. My husband died when our son was 3. One minute he was playing in the yard and the next he was gone, struck by a drunk driver on a rainy night. I was 27, widowed with an infant son and no plan. But I promised myself, I will protect him. He will not know fear or want. I worked 2 jobs for 15 years. Daylight I spent at the diner on Main Street, carrying trays piled with coffee and bacon and egg biscuits. Dinner rush, I learned to balance orders with mechanical precision. Then I would head to my second job, cleaning offices until midnight, vacuuming, polishing, scrubbing restrooms, emptying trash. At 4 in the morning, I would drag myself home, wake my son, and make him oatmeal before his school bus came. I never complained. I never cried. Too exhausting. Besides, tears would not buy books or shoes. Some weeks I skipped lunch so he could have pizza money on Fridays. Some mornings I wore the same dress twice because I couldn't afford detergent for more, but I was proud. Proud that I could stretch a paycheck into food, heat, and tuition for community college. He told me once with wide eyes, "Mom, you're my hero." I choked back tears until I couldn't breathe, because I thought I could be both his hero and still hold myself together. We lived in a rented duplex with cracked linoleum floors and a radiator that hissed like a dragon in winter. Every evening, we'd curl on the tattered couch and I would read to him from library books, Charlotte's Web, Little House on the Prairie, stories of courage and friendship. I would tuck him in, then crawl into bed beside him. Too tired to change, but too afraid something would happen in the dark. I cooked with what I had, casseroles, chili, anything that could stretch. I sewed holes in his shirts at the sleeves so they would last. I mended socks until my fingers bled. When he asked why I did so much, I said, "Because I love you more than I fear being tired." I dreamt of something better, of us breaking free of pay-by-day survival. I enrolled in night classes, studying finance and accounting after my cleaning shifts. He fell asleep over flashcards with me. He would say, "One more chapter, Mom," and I would whisper, "Just one more," because giving up was never an option. On graduation night, I walked across the stage for my associate degree in financial services. I held it for him to see later. The paper diploma focused on, "Mom, my first role model." I was proud of that line, but I felt his pride more. He went on to university on a scholarship I kept private. He never knew how many shifts I gave up so he could buy textbooks. I never let him know how often I went without. I thought that being a mother meant this: sacrifice and silence, work and prayer. That success meant he would remember me, not my faded dress or chipped plates. When he graduated, I cried for the first time in public. His speech, to my mom, who taught me resilience, who taught me that nothing is more valuable than keeping promises, made every ounce of lonely struggle worth it. Years later, we moved into a suburban home within a good school district. I refinanced my house, took a part-time job at the library to help with college debt. He got married, soft and gentle, in a garden ceremony. I thought we would be okay. I thought he would remember where he came from. But somewhere along the line, I realized I had the wrong definition of success. I thought sending him to college and giving him a house would be enough. But success is not measured in diplomas and doors. It is measured in hearts and humility. I thought that if he had everything, he would remember me. But he forgot that I was the one who carried him through pain, fear, and midnight tears. He forgot that success is not built with money. It is built on gratitude, respect, presence. I was wrong about success. I thought love required sacrifice, but love also requires recognition. You cannot ask someone to love you by giving them a life. They have to see the gift being given. And now, tonight, on my 77th birthday, I sit alone with a cake and a candle that I lit just for me. I'm grateful his memory worked well enough to swipe the card to book the resort dinner. But he forgot something more. When the night ends, who will be left in the kitchen with cake crumbs and silence? That is the moment I understand. I gave him a life. But I also taught myself to see, to remember, to demand that my sacrifices not be invisible. Because success without love is just achievement, and I am no longer content with ghosts. I sat in my dimly lit living room, replaying the screen of my phone over and over. It was late, but insomnia is loyal when betrayal arrives like this. My daughter-in-law was live streaming their dinner. A surprise birthday getaway, she called it, smiles glossy, champagne flute in hand. If I hadn't known better, I would have believed it was a charity gala. Except it wasn't charity. It was my money. My card. She lifted her glass and said into the camera, "Look at this view. Cheers to us and a big thanks to Grandma for treating us tonight." They laughed. My heart pinched, but my mind sharpened. I set the phone down and opened my laptop. I logged into the bank's website, clicked through to the credit card section, the one labeled J. Armitage, authorized user. Every one of those stream of consciousness bites of dinner, every pop of champagne had passed through that card. I clicked recent transactions. There it was, time-stamped. $28.50 appetizer, $14.95 service charge, $125. 0 cents entree, $130, 50 cents for 2 glasses of Chardonnay, $150, 0 cents, dessert trio, and a $400, 0 cents charge labeled The Reserve at Lakeview Resort, dinner for 2. My breath caught. Still logged in, I pulled the PDF statements. I annotated each line, copied transaction IDs, downloaded timestamps. Every meal, every tip, every over-the-top expense. But the real shocker was coming next. I pulled out my email, still chanting gentle memories of a time when I trusted them. And then I found it. A confirmation email from Lakeview's booking system, addressed to Michael Jerensen. But the IP address? Traced back to our home Wi-Fi, the home I still live in. Suddenly it became undeniable. They had booked this, they had planned it, with my money, behind my back, and streamed it for a virtual audience. I watched the stream rewind to the spa scene, my stomach turning. She was dragging a robe on, whispering to the camera. They even comped our spa session, so thoughtful of Grandma. 2 women walked out with teas and robes, turning to smile for the feed. I saved screenshots. I copied the live stream URL. Even though it was after hours, live viewers numbered in the dozens. Talked about the perfect parents, the loving grandma who treats them so well. 2 lives being lived on my dime, serving my money as if it were a servant. My phone buzzed. A notification showed, your account, $275, 0 cents recognized, new transaction. I opened the statement. Another $275, 0 cents had been just taken out. Resort transportation and gratuities. I felt rage flicker inside me, dark and fierce. I took a deep breath and opened a fresh email draft. I titled it, Expense Log for tonight's live stream. I attached a neatly labeled spreadsheet, appetizer 28.5, entree 125, rose champagne 130.5, spa 225, spa 225. At the bottom, a total that made me dizzy. And then I hit send. The email went to my lawyer, my financial advisor, and a trusted friend who worked in forensic accounting. I did not send it to them, not yet. They had to unwrap the story themselves. I watched until the end of the live stream. When they finished dessert, my daughter-in-law smiled softly and said, "We love you, Grandma." It sounded forced, empty, and wrong. Then she clicked, end. I shut the laptop. Tonight, I had the receipts. I had the proof. I had the live stream. They thought this betrayal would go unnoticed. But not when I was waiting, with tea in one hand, paperwork in the other. That's when I realized I was no longer a silent victim. I was a quiet storm. And storms arrive with their own kind of calm. I called my old lawyer, Marcy Thorne, the one who had helped me navigate the maze of pension paperwork decades ago when I was just trying to save enough for retirement. When she answered, I could hear the fatigue underneath her professional calm. But there was recognition in her voice, too. "Jane, it's been a while." "Marcy," I said, "I need your help. Discreetly." That was enough. She knew exactly which file I meant. My retirement account. My pension. The very account that had funded their vacation. A week later, I met her at a small cafe downtown. No one would suspect a former librarian, bent with age, planning a legal storm. She slid me a folder. "I've reviewed what you sent. We can challenge the authorization paperwork." I nodded, my hand steady. "I don't want noise yet, just results." She smiled, a flash of old alliance. "Quiet and powerful. I like it." Next, I found a private investigator, recommended by Marcy. A soft-spoken man named Derek, used to uncovering financial secrets. We agreed on a handshake and a confidentiality clause. No one would know until the evidence spoke loud enough on its own. Derek started with the hospitality chain, the resort, spa, dining. He traced their reservations and payments. Paperwork entered under my name. Billing address, mine. All routed through the bank I had used since retirement. He subpoenaed the spa logs. Not just payment, but RFID keycards, timestamps, names. He found it all. The spa receipt. Cardholder, J. Armitage. The reservation confirmation. Reservation for Michael Aronson, booked via IP 192 January 5, 168. The address matched my home Wi-Fi. By the end of week 3, I had an envelope in my hands, thicker than I ever expected. Receipts, screen grabs, PDFs of authorization documents laminated with fake signatures. I had red wine-stained cocktail napkins from their photo dump, time-stamped videos, booking references. They thought they had fooled me. They had not. Every night I sorted the evidence. I printed labels, Exhibit A, Exhibit B, like they did in court. I filed them in a binder, my silent response to their laughter. In the background, Marcy worked quietly, preparing the legal framework. Elder abuse, theft of funds from an elderly person, forgery, unauthorized access to pension. By the end of month 1, she had a stack of motions ready, requests for freezing of accounts, subpoenas, petitions for guardianship changes, all tucked into a sealed folder labeled Miller PD, label protection with dissent. I never spoke to them. I did not ask why. I did not cry out. I did not post. I did not hint. But I was ready. I was organized. I was calm. One evening, as I shut off the lamp, I traced my fingers over the binder's spine. I thought of the nights I spent teaching him to tie his shoes, of the nights I worked double shifts so he could graduate. I thought of the house he built me, the one I still live in but used to belong to both of us. And I thought, it's coming home. They had taken my celebration, they had stolen my dignity, but they had underestimated me. They had underestimated the quiet dignity of a 77-year-old woman who knows how to hold her own. So I sat there in the dark, my binder on the table, the lamp off, and I let it be still, because stillness was my power, silence was my strategy, and when the moment came, I would speak through proof, not passion, because we all know emotions fade, receipts do not. That was the night I realized, revenge needs no roar, it only needs readiness. I filed the lawsuit early on a quiet Wednesday morning. The complaint was clear and precise. Elder financial abuse, unauthorized use of my retirement funds, forgery of authorization documents, and conspiracy to hide the truth. I watched from the kitchen table as the court clerk stamped my petition and sent it off. A sense of calm welled up inside me. I had turned pain into purpose. 2 weeks passed. In the hush before the hearing, I heard nothing from them. No calls, no hints they knew what was coming. But I knew. I had the proof. And that proof was patient. Finally, the court date arrived. I walked into the solemn courtroom, feeling more composed than I had in years. They brought my son and daughter-in-law in, looking uncomfortable in borrowed suits. Their lawyer, slick and nervous, stood beside them. Against the polished wood and overhead lighting, I felt the weight of every lonely birthday, every buried sacrifice, every time I had been taken for granted. Marcy, my lawyer of 30 years, guided me to the bench where I would sit. I carried the binder of evidence like a shield. She motioned for me to sit. I did. The gavel hit, the judge gavelled opening statement, and my son's lawyer spoke first. He said I was overreacting, emotional, possibly misunderstanding documentation in the account agreement. He claimed the pension statements and the credit card usage were part of a family agreement. Perhaps I forgot. They were sorry if there was offense and willing to return funds if necessary. Marcy responded simply, "This is not a misunderstanding. This is deception. The family agreement was never discussed with Miss Armitage. There is no record of her consent. Her funds were taken without permission. We will show evidence of forgery and financial abuse." I watched the judge's eyes shift to me. I looked him in the eye. My silence said more than any defense. I did not cry. I did not plead. I simply waited. The clerk called the first exhibit, the bank transaction log. Marcy presented it systematically. Here is the credit card logged under her name. Purchases totaling $5,708, all dated on or around her birthday. This was used without her approval. The judge flipped pages of printed bank statements. My son's lawyer tried to object, but the judge let it pass. Then Marcy introduced the live stream video, showing them at dinner, toasting to Grandma, as the camera panned wide, to include her murmured, "Happy birthday," barely audible behind their laughter. Tension settled in the room like thick steam. Not a single spectator moved or breathed too loud. Then came the booking confirmation email. Marcy turned her screen so all could see. Reservation was placed from their home IP address. "It shows intent," Marcy said. "His intent. My client was never informed, never offered the choice to share funds. This was theft." My son shifted uncomfortably. My daughter-in-law bit her lip. Their lawyer whispered some excuse under his breath. A hush hung as the judge cleared his throat. He asked if my son's lawyer would like to speak. His lawyer leaned forward and said, "Your Honor, perhaps there is a way to resolve this without full litigation. We're willing to return funds and make a gesture of apology." I looked up, my expression calm but firm. "Your Honor, I appreciate the offer, but I cannot accept money under the table. What I need is transparency. I need a full accounting of funds, and a public record that shows what happened, so it never happens again. I don't need the money. I need the truth." It was the quiet climax of this courtroom drama, my moment of clarity. The judge nodded slowly. He asked the defense lawyer if he could arrange a written admission and a partial statement of restitution. He looked at me. I nodded back. That was all I'd ever wanted. The court recessed to allow negotiations. I sat still, binder on my lap. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt something sharper, righteous relief. I had reclaimed my narrative from silence and sadness. An hour later, the judge reconvened. He announced that the defense had made a settlement proposal. They would return all funds to my account, publicly acknowledge the misuse in a court record, and issue an apology. They would also attend counseling for financial awareness in families. The judge gave them 7 days to file an official transcript. My son's face had crumbled partially. My daughter-in-law looked shiny with tears, but there was no guilt there I could see, only discomfort that they had been caught. Marcy patted my arm as we left. Outside the courtroom, I didn't speak. I just slipped my hand into hers. The winter sun was bright. My breath formed white clouds. I looked up at the sky and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Release. Back at home, I sat at my kitchen table again. I returned to the binder. Inside was a note from Marcy. "You did not need to fight for justice, but you did, and that is powerful." I closed the binder. I burned the candle I had lit on my birthday. The wax ran soft and warm. I poured myself a cup of tea and ate a slice of the lemon cake, every bite tasting like freedom. I did not expect them to call. I did not want their thanks. I did not need their love. I had asked for no more than truth, and I had received it. That night I slept deeply, with no fear of stolen moments, only the quiet peace of a woman who had spoken with proof. The courtroom had emptied by midday, but the echoes of its verdict lingered in my bones. My retirement account had been frozen. No withdrawal, no hiding. My pension was untouchable now. The judge's words were simple, final, and merciless. "The petition is granted. Ms. Armitage's account and remaining pension funds are to be frozen. Mr. and Mrs. Aronson are disqualified from any inheritance or financial control henceforth." No fanfare, no press cameras, just a stamp and a declaration. But in that moment I felt the walls of my world shift, not because I had won money, but because I had reclaimed my agency. I woke before dawn. The house was quiet, a relief for once, not a reminder of their absence. I poured my tea and sat at the kitchen table, watching the steam rise. In that silence, I allowed myself to breathe fully. No calls came, no apologies, no last-minute pleas, and that was fine. I never wanted to humiliate them in public. I didn't schedule interviews. I didn't post selfies. But the truth has its own momentum. Within hours, the first news outlets picked it up. No sensational headlines, just local journalism doing its job. "Elder abuse" or "family dispute. Court stops inheritance" was the most polite headline. But the words screamed. I could picture my son's face as he read it. That afternoon, a recruiter called my son's workplace. He'd been working with a financial firm that prided itself on trust and discretion. The firm's PR team had caught wind of the story. They weren't explicit, but the message was clear. Risk management didn't tolerate familial scandal. He was let go. I didn't rub it in. I never gloated. I merely made another cup of tea and finished the slice of cake I had left from my birthday. The next day, another article appeared in a regional media blog. "Social media influencer loses platform amid pension scandal." They flashed a photo of her at the resort, champagne glass in hand. Sponsors pulled ads. A sponsored post was canceled. Invitations to panels disappeared. With zero fanfare, she lost her brand partnerships. Just like that, her affluent mom influencer persona vanished. Not one word whispered by me. No press release, no Instagram post, not even a message to the newspaper. Because sometimes, silence is the final punctuation mark. I didn't need to comment. My actions had done enough. One evening, I walked to the lake near my house. The water was calm, reflecting the golden sunset like hope mirrored on glass. I let my dog Penny off the leash, and she chased a lone seagull by the shore. I smiled. I thought of everything that had happened. The betrayal, the quiet treason of a birthday dinner at someone else's table, the courtroom, the judgment. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't vengeance. It was justice. Days turned into weeks. My phone remained silent. No calls from them, no guilt, no contrition. Instead, neighbors knocked. "Your flowers look lovely, Mrs. Jane. Hope you're well? We heard the news." They didn't pity me. They respected me. That meant more than any private apology. One afternoon, I found a letter in my mailbox. No return address, just my name in a messy scrawl. I sat at the kitchen table and gently opened it. It was from my son. It said, "Mom, I won't apologize for it here. I hope you feel proud of yourself. I'm sorry you ever had to feel used. I don't know what's next for me, but I hope one day I can earn your respect again." That was all. No plea, no demand, but it said enough. I didn't write back. Not yet. Instead, I filed the letter in my binder of receipts, the one already marked Documents of Truth, because sometimes forgiveness waits on respect, and forgiveness without boundaries is just another invitation to be used. I replaced the pension call checklist with books again. Novels, biographies, recipes. I took a quilting class. I joined a reading circle at the library. Penny and I walked along the shoreline. I planted new flowers, bright yellows and oranges that reflected the renewal inside me. The court recovery provided more than I expected. I started Birthday Fund, a small nonprofit that organizes birthday parties for elders who would otherwise go ignored. People who share my story but have no resources to reclaim their own dignity. The first event was a simple gathering in the community center. Balloons, cake, cards. About 20 seniors came. We laughed, sang, and I helped blow out the candles on a cake nearly as small as the one I once bought alone. I saw recognition in their eyes, for themselves and for me. Then on the morning of my 78th birthday, I found a note on my doorstep. The same creamy cardstock, no message inside, just my initial, J. That afternoon I mailed them one of my own. I chose truth over silence. I hope you find the same courage. No greeting, no signature, just that. I learned something valuable in the courtroom, maybe the most valuable thing. You do not need closure, you need peace. You do not need reunion, you need redemption, not in their eyes, but in your own. And that, the whole truth, the cold facts, the blunt pushback, it changed everything. What I endured was not a quiet defeat, it was a turning point. And though the inheritance might have moved from their pockets to mine, the real inheritance now belongs to those I help, those who deserve more than a silent toast. And me, I belong to my own life again, a quiet one, filled with purpose, peace, and the knowledge that justice can be served without shouting. That's what 77 years has taught me. Justice need not roar. It only needs to be heard. After the legal dust settled and my pension was secured, I faced a choice. Withdraw into quiet solitude or convert this victory into something meaningful. I chose the latter. That's how the Birthday Fund began, an idea that started as a personal resolve and grew into a shared project of dignity and joy. A week after the court ruling, I sat with Marcy in her cozy office. My binder of receipts lay open between us, but my mind was on something new. "I don't need these funds," I said one morning. "But others, they need moments of belonging. They deserve to know someone remembers them." One of the last moments I remember is winning the birthday cake, filled with precious ranch. Marcy's eyes softened. She understood. She helped me draft a nonprofit application, paperwork filed under Birthday Fund, Inc., with the mission statement, ensuring no elder blows out their birthday alone. Within a month, we were approved. We opened a small bank account, set up a volunteer roster, and reached out to local retirement homes. Our inaugural birthday party was at Greenwood Retirement Center, a modest facility filled with residents quietly tucked away. Many of them hadn't had a party in years, some not since their 60s. I arrived early, balloons and streamers in one hand, sheets of birthday cards in another. Volunteers followed, local high school students, church members, neighbors I'd quietly recruited. They pulled tables together, laid out homemade cakes and punch, arranged presents in neat stacks. At 2 p.m., the first guest arrived, Mrs. Eleanor Schmidt, 86. She shuffled in with trembling hands, her hair neatly pinned, a faded floral dress that once belonged to her daughter. Volunteers hugged her as if she were family. As one by one, more residents appeared, each escorted by staff or their own booklet of photos. I watched them rediscover light in their eyes. We didn't spend extravagant money. My legal settlement hadn't bought luxury. But the cakes were homemade, each flavor chosen by volunteers. Strawberry shortcake, chocolate fudge, lemon drizzle. We included gluten-free and sugar-free options, so no one felt excluded. We printed birthday banners, 100 by 24 inches, pastel watercolor backgrounds, scripted words, "Happy birthday, you're loved." Beneath the banner we placed portraits of the elders, hung where they could see them during their party. One cake table was titled "Truly Unique," with individualized toppers, "Celebrating Mary, 93," or "Happy 99th George." I made it a point to personalize each detail. We invited local musicians. 2 grandsons of a volunteer brought a guitar and violin, playing "You Are My Sunshine." A retired teacher read postcards we'd solicited from community members, cheerful notes like "Your smile matters," or "Hope this year brings you peace." I handed out cream-colored birthday cards with my own handwritten inscriptions. "You are seen. You are cherished. Jane." I watched the tears catch in their eyes. That was worth more than any courtroom win. At first, some volunteers were unsure what to expect. They thought they were showing kindness. But soon I saw them leave renewed more than they had given. A teenage volunteer, Jasmine, told me it was her first birthday party without her father. A staff nurse, Marisol, said she realized how few chances the residents had for laughter. A community theater actor said, "This is theater for the soul. I'll never forget the climax." Midway through the first event, the clock struck 3 p.m. and everyone turned to see Mrs. Helen Parker being wheeled in. Her staff said she rarely left her room. She never celebrated birthdays, not ever. She looked frail, white hair tucked under a pink shawl, lips pale. Volunteers helped her stand at the head table. I guided her to the seat with a small cake in front of her, adorned with 102 candles. The room hushed. I motioned to each volunteer by name, pointing them to Mrs. Parker's small cake and then standing behind her. Her hands trembled as I helped her place them on the table. I leaned down and whispered, "Make a wish, Helen." She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and blew gently. I held one side of the cake. When she opened her eyes, a tremor touched her lips, as though she prepared to speak. Hesitated. There it was, a fragile voice that broke through my heart. "I've never had a birthday, not once, not since I was a girl. Thank you for seeing me." Then she reached for my hand, her skin thin as tissue, and squeezed. Her eyes were wet. She said, "I am so full now." The room sighed. Volunteers cried quietly. I felt my throat constrict, not because I was sad, but because the weight of this moment was enough to carry a lifetime of small kindness. They say real magic is rare, but the glow in that room, that was magic. Word spread. Retirement centers booked us months in advance. Local churches donated supplies. Bakeries made cakes at cost. A small radio interview brought a surge of volunteers. Each year, Birthday Fund grew. We celebrated over 200 elders last year, some turning 90, some 104. The oldest? Mrs. Margaret Lewis, who blew out 107 candles under a rainbow arch. I watched communities shift. Suddenly, second graders wanted to memorize birthdays. High schoolers would pick up cupcakes after work. Local businesses offered discounts on balloons. The narrative was changing. Every birthday invitation was sent personally, handwritten, numbered, mailed by me. One card read, "You are not forgotten, we celebrate you." They signed their names, me, Marcy, and a roster of volunteers. The cards became keepsakes. Once a year I write new birthday cards to my own son and daughter-in-law and place them amidst the envelopes. But their messages say something different. I remembered. Every year, every presence. You are still part of this. They go with no return address, just a soft echo of presence. 2 winters ago, I met Mrs. Parker again, now 104. She pulled me aside and whispered, "You gave me a moment I thought I had lost forever." I answered, "No, you never lost it. We just helped you find it again. We hugged. Neither of us had family, but in that embrace, I felt we belonged, somewhere, together. Birthday Fund isn't charity, it's restoration. Every cake is a declaration, every song a reclamation. I hold fundraisers through book clubs, bake sales, even a spring flower sale, just so no elder counts another empty year without candlelight. I've heard from other states. A woman in Ohio started her own birthday brigade. One in Florida hosts virtual birthday calls for homebound elders. Every letter I receive reminds me, what begins with one grandmother can ripple into a movement. I don't do it for recognition. I have everything I need. I don't speak at galas. I don't post selfies with helium balloons. I dress simply, drive self to these small halls, carry cakes and candles in my car. My community sees me, not as someone who lost a son's affection, but as someone who refused to lose her own kindness. The woman who once sat alone on her birthday now leads a network of joy. Years ago, I thought success meant university degrees, a nice home, a son who respected me. Tonight, I know success looks different. It looks like Mrs. Parker's eyes when she saw cake for the first time. It looks like volunteers hugging elders who have played no role in their stories, yet found intimacy there. It looks like a ripple of birthdays, once lost, now celebrated. It looks like turning pain into purpose. Next May, the planner fills half a page, parties scheduled, bakers signed up, cards ready to be sent. I'll buy the cards in January so I can write them before the blossoms bloom. And I'll be there, candle in one hand, cake plate in another, wearing a gentle smile and the knowledge that giving doesn't end when the court documents close. It just began again. Every year, as May arrives and the lilacs begin to bloom, I sit at my small oak desk and pull out a new stack of cream-colored cards, each one blank and waiting for intention. Among them is the one I always set aside for him, the card addressed to my son. I write the message slowly, deliberately, in careful cursive. I remembered. Every year, every receipt, especially you. 3 simple lines. No signature, no flourish, no expectation of a reply. This card isn't meant to remind him of guilt. It's meant to affirm truth. It is the quiet echo of a memory that will not be erased. After writing the message, I close the envelope without sealing it completely. I place the card gently on top of the stack, along with dozens of others prepared for elders I've never met. Some are facing their 90th birthday, others celebrating milestones they thought had already passed. Then, I walk down the hall to the kitchen and pop a cup of chamomile tea into the microwave. I lean against the counter and hold the card between my fingers. I close my eyes and let the quiet settle around me. I don't think of how many years have passed since their betrayal. I don't consider whether they'll ever read the card or if it will be opened at all. Because this isn't about them. It is simply about me. When I walk outside, Penny at my heel, I feel the spring breeze brush against my skin. The yard is bright with fresh green grass and the scent of early blossoms. I inhale deeply. This is serenity. I don't need an apology. I don't need someone to say, "I'm sorry, Mom." I just need to know I held on to my own dignity. I chose the truth. I chose action. I chose compassion for others and myself. Some say you need closure. Some say you must reconcile to heal. But I have learned that healing doesn't always come from closure. Sometimes it comes from consistency. Consistency in your values. Consistency in your actions. Consistency, especially when it feels hard. I don't need to confront them each year. I need only to receive my own truth with grace. Once the stack of cards is in order, I walk to the mailbox. No fanfare, no photo op. I slip the cards inside and close the lid. The mailbox clunks shut. That sound is full and complete. It isn't a shout. It isn't a plea. It's a gentle declaration. I remembered. I might not get a text saying, "Thanks," or a returned card, but that doesn't matter, because each year I have honored my own promise. Back at home, I brew a fresh cup of tea and sit on the porch with Penny. I watch clouds drift across the sky. I watch a hummingbird dip toward the feeder. I feel calm, secure, whole. My life is not defined by their absence. It is defined by the lives I touch through Birthday Fund, by the moments of connection I built after reclaiming my own. Maybe one day my grandson Liam will read that card. Maybe he will learn the truth from someone else. That's okay. Another grandmother I barely know once said, "The softest footprints can travel farthest." I believe that, because words don't need volume to matter. When people ask me now how I am, I say, I am at peace. That's not a euphemism for sadness or loneliness. It is a true statement. I have found my anchor. I have faced betrayal, but I did not drown in it. I have confronted wrongdoing, but I did not become wrong. I have been forgotten by blood, but remembered by my own light. So here I am, at 78, sending a card that names a simple truth. I remembered. Every year, every receipt, especially you. No anger, no demand, no conditions, just presence, just acknowledgement. And a reminder, if you poured your life into someone, that gift deserves recognition, even if no one thanks you. If you're holding this story in your heart, if you've been overlooked, misunderstood, or erased, know this: your memories are valid, your sacrifices are real, and your story matters, whether anyone else hears it or not. Hold on to your truth, let it guide you, and when you feel ready, share it with someone who needs to know someone else remembers too. Because across silences, through lonely years, your quiet voice may become another's lifeline. That is the ending I choose, not because they changed, but because I did. I chose to remember. Every year, no matter what. If this story stirred something in you, if you've ever sat at a quiet table wondering when your love became invisible, or if your sacrifices were ever seen at all, know this: you are not alone, and your story is not over. This is Grandma True Stories, a place where the quietest woman in the room finally speaks, where silence becomes strength, where forgotten mothers become unforgettable voices. So if you believe in justice without shouting, love that remembers everything, and dignity that never expires, subscribe to this channel. Click the bell so you never miss a story. And share this with someone who needs to know. We are still here, still strong, still telling the truth, because when a grandma speaks, the world finally listens.